Welcome, everyone.
Welcome back to the Brotherhood, everyone.
Yes, we were just chatting before we hit record, and it was so funny to come up with a beautiful topic that we would love to share today with the Brotherhood, all of you listening or watching. And it is like a recap about anger. I'd love to come back to the last episode where we were going into anger, and you, brother, were sharing a very profound experience how to deal with your anger,
Yeah.
which was a very kind of enlightened moment for you, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd love to
Well,
share that.
it was funny because as I was editing the episode, I kept on realizing, because you asked me that question multiple times of how do I deal with anger? And I realized upon editing the episode, I kept kind of skirting around truly answering it. And I realized from rewatching that episode that how I deal with anger now versus how I used to deal with anger has shifted quite a bit. And I was sharing before we hit record, the day after I was editing that episode, I was splitting some firewood, and I had the realization, a wood stove, it's our only source of heat in our current house. And so I'm constantly splitting firewood. And I realized that that's actually one of the ways that I do allow that energy to move through me, even if I'm not feeling angry in that moment or feeling frustrated in that moment. There's something just archaic, something that's just I don't know, burying an axe into something. There's just this visceral sense of power from it, of having this piece of wood that's knotted and everything like that, and okay, can I split this in just one fail swoop? And how much energy can I actually channel into the head of that axe to drive it through that piece of wood? And sometimes I'll put a piece of wood on the chopping block, and I'm this one's probably going to take a couple of swings. And I take a deep breath, and I swing, and it just goes right through it, and it cuts it like butter. And it's okay, what is this? I mean, it's satisfying, but it's also what is this sense that sometimes we look at something and have this concept of this is going to be hard, and then we actually do it, and it's oh, that was kind of easy. And that was really that realization of when it comes to any emotion, anger, grief, any of the more challenging emotions that can have a tendency to almost take us over, if you will. If we don't have a good sense of who we are, we don't have a good grounded felt sense within our body, it's easy to allow an emotion to take over our sense of self. Absolutely. Where we feel we're an angry person, or we're a sad person, or we're a depressed person. We almost take on that emotion as a part of our persona versus something that's just meant to move through us in a certain time period.
Right.
And so to actually truly answer that question, how do I deal with my anger, is I meet it. I meet it in the moment. And that's how it's different from the way that I used to be when I used to have anger come up in me. It's okay, I'm going to push it out of my system onto another person, or I'm going to push it out of my system onto another thing, or I can look back.
Suppress it.
Yeah. Or straight up suppress it. Right. I look back when we were converting the bus, and I had several breakdowns during that period of time of just you know, there's no square straight line within a bus. It's got a curved roof, and it's not built with the idea of it being turned into a home. So everything had to be custom built, and I got so frustrated sometimes. And I remember taking a hammer and just hitting something that didn't want to move over and over and over again, truly projecting it on my outside world. And there were so many times afterwards, I just get so shameful on myself, and be God, why did I act like that? And beating myself up over getting mad. And so that's where I really am focusing on when I do start to feel myself feeling that sense of anger, of disconnecting from what it is that I'm doing, because I don't want to continue to build and re-ingrain that pattern of that is the behavior that I meant to, because that was the learned behavior that I watched from my dad. Like when he got angry or frustrated, like that's what he would do. He'd get really pissed. He'd like throw things. He'd yell. Like, just like what we talked about in the last episode, these like unhealthy forms of like expressing anger, but like anger can also turn into power. It can turn into our ability to actually be this powerful masculine presence if we channel it in the right way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's try to. I would love to go into certain points that you mentioned. I love how you like you combined anger with power, right? Which is actually a very very close to each other, right? For the masculine energy, because
Yeah.
especially when you described how you chopped with the axe the wood, and you feel a kind of satisfaction in it, like to really put the hammer and really split the wood, and what comes in your body, the reflection is power. Right? So anger and power is very, very closely related with each other, especially when we are just thinking about ancient times. Well, not so far away. I mean, so far back away from our time now. We, as man, when we are going to war, for example, yeah, or going for a hunt, you had to bring some kind of anger and this animalistic emotion up to really be in this warrior mode, right? So to be powerful, to tackle with an opponent, or to be hunting an animal, you have to have this adrenaline, this cortisol kick in your bloodstream to yeah to be ready for the task. And so it's really interesting how in our society in modern times this masculine powerful energy is suppressed, because we are not running around and chopping wood all the time. I mean, you're lucky that you're living outside, but many men are living also in cities, or don't have this opportunity to be in nature and really beat something up. Maybe that's also the reason why, for example, martial arts became again very popular, right?
Yeah.
So this is something ingrained in us to really let this energy flow. And I really feel that also when, like, I shared with you that I started again going into the gym after a couple of years, and it really is doing something in my energy body. Not just like that I'm feeling fit and then I'm gaining muscle. It's also like this having some kind of resistance, and I'm pushing against it to really bring my whole body in it, my whole power. It creates a feeling of anger, like I want to move these weights, yeah, or
Yeah.
I want when I'm or doing martial arts, right? I mean, really want to punch something, I really want to kick, and this is something that is needed in the body to express. And afterwards you feel really centered and grounded. Yeah. So it's interesting that this is somehow a part of this masculine body that needs to be expressed. And the less we are able to express that and suppress it, the more the chances are that it will leak very unhealthy out, to project it towards a loved one, or maybe hurting yourself.
Yeah.
Or this can happen, you're hurting yourself because you kind of projected it to someone else. I had a friend of mine who was really, when he was angry, he started to beat himself. I was like, it's a really weird thing to witness. Yeah. So like this is like this leaking of this powerful energy. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to find a channel that is resonating with you, to let this anger or this power express itself. I don't think that it needs necessarily to be now martial arts or just chopping wood. I mean, it could be also something like, for example, singing, right? I was I was playing back in the days in a hardcore band, and I remember that every time when we were doing the rehearsals once a week, it was therapy for all of us. We always
Sure.
shared like this is like therapy for us because you really have loud, heavy metal music and then screaming from the top of your lungs. Yeah, so because sound is also movement of energy, as you know, right? And doing somatic breath work, we always talk about like sound is a very powerful um, source to move energy through your body. So when you're singing, and I don't mean now very soft tunes, but really screaming from the top of your lungs. I think when heavy metal and punk rock came out, that was actually it was exactly the time where masculine energy needed to find a channel to express that.
Yeah.
So it's really really beautiful to find something, finding a channel to express this powerful energy.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like, because power is almost like this idea that keeps coming up, and it's like you have to go through the anger first to be able to get connected to that power, because like you were saying earlier, they are so closely related with one another. They're only separated by degree, but it's like how many of us are missing that sense of power within our life, of like even power over your life, power to make the decisions that you want to make, power to speak your truth, power to be your own authentic expression in the world. Like, and in not having that power comes up anger, in not feeling like you can either protect yourself or your loved ones, feeling like, you can't actually speak what you want to speak. Like, that is a breach in your own power, which is naturally going to bring up anger, right? It's like we talked about in the last episode, like when a boundary gets crossed, right? Like it's natural for anger to come up when a boundary gets crossed, because it's like, okay, I have this clear defined set thing that maybe you've communicated, maybe you haven't communicated, but that really speaks to like, this is what I need. And when this either doesn't happen, or when this, particular thing gets breached, then yeah, I'm going to get anger, and I'm going to bring up this felt sense of, okay, it's almost like, we always say like it's easy to get on the defensive when somebody brings something up to you, like if a boundary gets breached. But like, why do we get so defensive when somebody communicates that we breached boundary on them, and get into this defensive way of being, when why can't we just accept that it's okay that they're angry? Why does
Yeah.
that then have to make us be like, oh, well, now I have to defend myself and why I said what I said, or why I did what I did, and have this reasoning, and instead of just like openly accepting the fact that we actually made somebody angry. And we did touch on like, nobody can make you feel a certain way, but it doesn't negate that we can say and do things that will bring up emotions in another human being. And when
Oh,
that
yeah, touching
happens,
wounds. Yeah.
yeah, how can we actually take full responsibility for that, whether it's our doing or somebody else's doing, and really being in whatever energy comes up, whether it's anger, whether it's power, whether it's sadness? Like, how can we actually accept that, and not push it away, not try to reason why that emotion's coming up, not try
Yeah.
to like figure out the why behind it, but just be okay with it being that.
Yes. Yeah. And it is beautifully said. And I think, especially also for sensitive men, this is a very challenging expression,
Mm,
the expression of anger, because, I mean, expressing anger in a healthy way is also claiming sovereignty. It's also saying like respecting your borders. Like if my boundaries are crossed, then I will be angry. And I express that, which is a very powerful energy. It's like it feels like I am claiming my space. So I'm in my fullest power to say like, stop, right? And I need the energy of anger to express that. I mean, that's the most natural thing. If you see animals, if they are chased or if they are cornered, what is an animal doing? Yeah, it starts to snap. It starts
Yeah.
to, right, like
Defend
it's
itself.
mammals. It defends
Yeah.
itself. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. So this is a very natural thing. Like, you are crossing my boundary. Yeah. Now we are talking about maybe it is something life threatening. Of course, then anger comes up. It is the vessel. It's like the energy vessel for a powerful expression. And being sensitive, and we shared our stories with our fathers also, that having like a very suppressed role model about this power. Yeah. So every time when we were expressing loud, like powerful, it was immediately punished,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to learn like, okay, my powerful expression is not wanted or is wrong because my parents get angry at me. Yeah. So when I'm angry, someone else gets angry, and then it's my fault. So that it's better if I feel it's coming up, then I just suppress it. Even if people are crossing my boundaries. And this is where the pleaser is coming. Because what
Mm-hmm.
we then learned as a coping mechanism is to please, to make them feel more valued, so they're not getting angry at us, so that they are not touching this wound that causes me to touch my own anger. And going into that, and you know that I shared with you that I more and more go into my masculine energy, more and more trying to explore that, really also telling to my partner and my family, like, this is something very new to me. And yes, I will, maybe if someone is triggering me, maybe I will be loud. Yeah. Because I need that. I need to express that because it was suppressed all the time. So to really inform your surroundings, like, look, this is something, this is not for everyone who's listening, who can resonate with that. Like, really trying to explore again anger, explore power. Maybe something that you did with going into the woods, you use your axe and just chop some wood, yeah. Or if someone is crossing your boundary, maybe um, the first intuition that is coming, like, I want to express, maybe allow it to express, even if it's ugly, even if it's loud. So what, right? Because it's healthier to do that and learn with it instead of constantly suppressing it, and then also hurting others
Yeah.
by not being in your fullest version, by not being in your fullest expression. So to really, maybe we need also a time where we create a little bit more space for expressing anger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, really to say, like, you know, yes, I was shouting at you, but this was something because you were hurt, like you were crossing my boundary. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that I was loud, but it was needed to be expressed. Yeah.
I think you
Of
just
course.
touched on something that's really important there is to, if you do end up projecting it, if you do end up letting it out while you're in a discussion or an argument, to immediately take responsibility for that, to be
Yeah.
able to come back and like, this was like my dad's mode of being is like, he'd get super angry, he'd yell at us, you know, and then the very next day he'd act like nothing ever happened. No
Right.
conversation around it,
Right.
no acknowledgement of responsibility, no apologies. It was just like, okay, it's a new day. We're going to start fresh, not even going to have a conversation around what happened
Let's
last
not
night.
talk about it. Yeah.
Whereas it's like, you know, I'm still holding the energy. I'm still pissed off.
Yeah.
I'm still hurt. And yet I'm
Yeah.
supposed to just act like it never happened. And so
Yeah.
that was a huge growing point for me, is that in the time periods where I do lose my temper In the time periods where I do raise my voice or I get angry, it's not very much time at all goes by before I go to my wife and be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I lost my cool. I'm sorry I, yelled or said the things that I said. Um, Here's what was coming up for me. Here was the story in my head of what was happening
Yes.
at that time, and really giving context for what my experience was,
Yeah.
for what was happening in my head, what was happening in my body, why it came out the way that it did. Maybe it was because of something she said or did or didn't do or didn't say. And then we can actually have an open conversation. But that conversation can't take place unless space has been created.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Beautifully said. And this is probably also for you, it was like, for me, it is really difficult. It was difficult to, after feeling hurt, to go and being loud, to go and say like, I'm sorry, because we haven't learned that. This pattern
Yeah.
is literally the cycle breaking now happening, right? So even if you express anger, which I more and more get more comfortable with, to express it not directly at someone, but I express it. I be loud. I scream. A couple of days ago, like I was in the kitchen with my wife, and I felt very on my last nerve already. And then I opened the fridge, and a glass of pickles just fall onto my foot, and I was so angry. So I slammed the door, and then I punched the wall. Yeah. And my wife was looking at me. I was like, wow, that's new. Right? So, but I removed myself immediately. I removed myself because, as I said, space. Because at that moment, I was still so enraged. If she would say something more, I would probably say something out of this hurt, of this rage. So, removing myself and then coming back and say, like, okay, I'm sorry that that happened. Yeah. But it needed to happen. It was an expression. Yeah. And I don't say like it is okay to hurt someone and then just take yourself away and then come back. It's like, I'm sorry that I hurt you.
Right.
No, this is
Right.
of course not what we're talking about. It's never projecting towards someone, but it's important to express it and not to suck it in and to suppress it. Yeah. And this is beautiful because it reminds me of what you said about like you are angry, expressing anger. This will also will elevate the nervous system of the people around us that are experiencing our anger, right? Of course, it's triggering. So when we are leaving the situation, their nervous system is still also in a very activated state. So it's our responsibility also to come back and to bring it down again, right? Instead of our fathers that, for example, were angry, removed themselves, our nervous system was still pitching, and then coming back, it's like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what do you mean nothing happened? I'm still scared, or I'm still like feeling very tense of it. So to really have the courage also and have the compassion, not courage, the compassion, that was the word I was looking for yourself, for your expression, and also for the person that witnessed that, that was energetically in that moment in your field, to say like, okay, this is my responsibility now also to bring it down again by talking about it, apologizing. Because what is an apology doing? An apology is like, okay, I am now giving you more space. I'm inviting you to come into my space. Yeah. Sorry. Immediately creates like a feeling of, okay, this person is not aggressive. This person is invitive. It's an invitive energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So I think for everyone who is listening here and have problems to express anger, really to explore, how do I actually deal with it? Like, what is my channel? Do I have a channel? or is it more like this coping mechanism of pleasing, like suppressing and pleasing, suppressing and pleasing? And to explore this archaic side and see like where actually, how does it feel to touch this energy of power within me? How does it feel? What is it doing with me when I'm connecting with this archetype of the warrior? Yeah. And I think this is very, very, very healthy and healing for our energy body.
Absolutely. And another avenue, like for those of you listening, if you're like, say you brought up, I live in the woods here. I'm on a little over 11 acres. There's no neighbors that are close to me. Like I can go out and let it rip in the woods and not really be super concerned about people hearing me. If they do hear me, they don't know where I am. They can't see me. But like if you're, say you live in a neighborhood or you live in the city and you're like, that's just not an option for me. Or you live in an apartment where people are going to call the cops wondering why is somebody yelling at the top of their lungs, worrying that something bad is happening. Another way that is useful is to write it down. Like actually angrily write it down on a piece of paper, like write it in big letters, like write over it multiple times, like really press into the paper, like even rip the paper, like get it all out. That is still a form of expression. It's tapping into creativity while also tapping into the emotion that's coming up, and then burn the piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's a really cool, like burning ceremonies are a phenomenal ritual to be able to move energy through without projecting it outside, without actually
Beautiful,
breathing life into it, but still allowing it to come through you.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, working with the elements, definitely. I mean, this is something that is also something we forgot or not really in attunement anymore with, like washing, like water, for example. It's the same, like very powerful. Like one of my routines after hosting our somatic breathwork sessions, for example, and after hosting a big group session, is always to take a shower, because also there, like the emotions that are really in my body, water helps to wash it away. Yeah. It's like metaphorically, but also energetically, water is cleansing. It is also an energy that is helping you to cleanse also your energetic body, not just your physical body.
So when you do that, are you coupling it with like visualization as well of like imagining anything that you took on from the session is just like the water is just washing it away and bringing it down the drain, or is this just like one of your rituals for like your own coming back to your center?
Yeah, it is just that, the latter. So
Okay.
to center myself, I'm not working so much with visualizations. I'm more like feeling. It's really on the sensation and emotional perception, how I work with my energetic body. So I feel the water. I really go into the sensation on my skin, how the water is just dripping down my body, and how it feels when it just cleanses my body, when it really goes down, yeah, through gravity. It's really beautiful to connect with this feeling of something is just dripping off me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going more in. I mean, this intuitively for me always the thing. I remember when it became very trendy to go into visualizations and affirmations and really to go into what I can envision. I was like, that's not my that's not my world. Like for me, it was always easier to tune with my emotions and feelings that really like that I can experience in my body.
I
Yeah.
think I think this is something that's really interesting because like I think this is part of learning yourself well enough to know what practices are going to work well and what are
Absolutely.
not. Like, I really resonate with the whole like feeling things, having this sense. And I think that that's just part of like having a sensitive nervous system, and just being more in tune and aware of what you are feeling, but what other people are feeling, the sensory input that's coming in from that like nervous system analysis perspective. But I think it's also important that, like, imagination is a huge tool
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
works really, really well. And this is what visualization works with, is it works with the imagination to like, how can we couple a felt sense within our body that is a somatic sensation with the power of our mind, and couple that with visualization, and bringing those two sensory inputs together to help achieve an end result. Like I have had phenomenal success with my clients of working with that, like
Yeah.
somatically bringing up the felt sensations, but then giving a like, and as an example, so like if somebody is feeling tension within their body, say it's pain in the lower back, like, okay, if that pain had a shape or a color or a texture, like what would it look like? Bringing it up visibly in the mind, of giving it a tangible representation of something, and then somatically working with it through the breath, through movement, through, energy modalities, and seeing, does the shape change? Does the color
Absolutely.
change? Does the texture
Yeah.
change? Does the weight of it change? So like, just an invitation for the listeners, like, this is why it's important to try many different practices and not just be like, okay, breath work is my way, or meditation is my way, or yoga is my way, or jujitsu is my way. Like,
Absolutely.
trying so many different things to see what works best for you. And I think this is something that is a huge fault of our modern day therapy, counseling, mental health, even going as far as like medical health, of there
Yeah.
being this one way for everyone.
Yeah. Or following trends.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
following, I mean, breathwork became also such a trend and everyone is jumping on breathwork, but breathwork is not for everyone and it shouldn't be, right? I mean, if you are not feeling comfortable with strong breathing, then breathwork is not the thing that you should do. That's it. It's not that you're wrong or there's something wrong with you. It's just that tool is not suitable for you. There are other tools that are suitable for you. And I think also I totally agree to really see what is resonating with you, but not just stick with it. Also try to explore and change the tool. Because this is also something like, oh no, I'm a breath worker and this is what I'm doing. And your body will at one point also habituate, it will adapt to it. Yeah? So it's important to also explore then, okay, maybe I try something else. And maybe I try, it also depends on the phase in your life. If it's something that maybe was working very well in a certain time in your life, but maybe you're changing, right? I mean, we are all a process. We are not static. Our body is changing. Our mind is changing. Yeah. Everything in us is a process. So also to use this analogy of like change is my friend, and also my practice and rituals are also changing, and I'm allowed to change. And I think this is a very powerful thing to explore, to see this whole, to see your life as I said it before we hit record, like chapters in a book, right? I mean, we are literally writing our own story. Like from moment to moment, we are writing our own stories, and in a book, and this book has chapters. Yeah, we are finishing one chapter, and then the next chapter starts, and this next chapter is maybe completely different, a
yeah,
completely different storytelling.
yeah.
And at the end, it's just like, wow, that was the book of Adam. This was the book of Samir. And to see that, not just like, oh, I was always like that and nothing will change. No, if you read a book, it will change throughout from chapter to chapter.
It's
Yeah.
It's interesting, this like book analogy of, and it made me think of, you were saying on the last episode of how like this victimhood mentality has been very apparent for you throughout your life. That like, if we continue with that book analogy, it's like when we're a victim, we're just reading the book. We're not writing it. And like, that's the difference between like shifting from being a victim versus shifting into like the survivor or the thriver mentality, right? Like when you make that shift, it's like you go from just being the witness and the reader to now you're the writer. And when you're the writer of your own story, that's when you start to take control. And I think that's also where we can like bring this back to like shifting from anger to power, right? If you're just angry and, this happened to me, like you're the victim. But when you shift that anger to power, you're again shifting to now being the creator of your reality. You're shifting into being the author of your story. You're shifting to being the director of your life. Like whatever way you want to label it, that's the change that has to happen. Because as long as you're a victim, as long as life is happening to you, sorry, it's never going to be the way you want it to be. It's always going to be a struggle. It's always going to be the things that are happening to you instead of the things that are happening for you, or the things that you are making happen because you know that that's going to bring you down the avenue that you want to go.
Wonderful, yes. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, but also still be in compassion with your chapters.
Yeah.
Maybe it will be in one of the next chapters where you reclaim your complete serenity of your life, Like I know how difficult it is to be the writer and the master of your life, right? I mean, I love your analogy with the rucksack and the stones. Like we have all so many stones that we are carrying with us, and sometimes we forget about like that it is heavy. Like not just our backpack, but also the backpack of your partner, the backpack of your parents, the backpack like of your friends, people that you just meet randomly on the street. To see everyone running with a backpack full of stones, which are really heavy and exhausting and draining, and having more compassion about like, yeah, we all just walking this path. We're all just walking through life, trying to reach the next chapter.
Yeah.
And really, being more and more aware of this is my book, this is my life. And to shift this perspective of like not feeling being the victim or being constantly in the victimhood, but more and more reclaiming your power and saying like, okay, maybe I don't have to carry all the stones. Maybe it is time for me also to let some of those stones just out of my backpack. And these tools are helping that we were talking about, breath work, or I love your qigong practice that you were just recently doing in one of the somatic exercises sessions in our community, and all of these beautiful tools that are available. Like we are living in a time where we have access to so many amazing tools, right? But it starts with awareness. It starts with space, having space within you, being aware of, wow, this is my life. I'm in this body, and this is my movie. This is my book. This is my story. The more we are connecting with that, it's not like I am living another one's story, or I am living for another story, for another person. But to come back and it's like, what is my story? Like, what is my story? And then just go back to the chapters. It's like, oh, wow, this happened and this happened in my life. What will be the next chapter? How do I want to be the next chapter? The concept of free will, like we are consciousness in this body with free will, an energetic field that has a free will to create. So yeah, awareness is something that where it starts.
Well, and it's important to have the awareness when you need to hire an editor. Yeah, you know, like continuing on this like analogy of the book, right? Like, what if the last chapter we were the victim, and the next chapter we want to become the writer, but we don't know how to bridge those two chapters. Like, we don't know how to get from being the victim to being the survivor and the thriver. That's where the editor comes in. And like, that's where it's important to have people on your team that can help you when you get stuck.
Yeah.
You know, it's
right.
And it's important to like, and this is again where it's like powerful, that backpack analogy of like, if we can see everyone as carrying a backpack, but we don't know how heavy their pack is. Like, could we actually stop with that person, take hours off and put theirs on and be like, holy shit, I had no idea you were carrying this much. So like really tapping into that compassion, and this kind of brings it back to that full circle of like, how can we not allow things happening outside of us to bring up the feelings of anger and frustration? Like, if somebody cuts you off on the road, like, do you actually know what they're carrying and dealing with in their day-to-day life? Like, yeah, maybe they are just driving like an asshole and cut you off, and that's just what was meant to be, because it was meant to bring something up in you that you can move through. But maybe that person is driving the way that they're driving because they're rushing to the hospital because their firstborn is on the way. And like, if you knew the context of that, would you actually still be mad that they cut you off, or would you actually give them the space to get in front of you? So like, when we don't know the context of every person's life that we encounter with, like, when we can instead just have this global compassion for like, I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't know why you're why you're acting the way that you're acting, but I'm just going to give you compassion and the benefit of the doubt that like, you don't have the same tools that I have right now. So you don't, maybe aren't even aware that you are acting the way that you're acting, or you're projecting the energy that you're projecting. So like, really compassion. Like, I can't emphasize it enough, not only for other people, but for yourself as well.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. But still still allowing yourself to be angry if they cut you off. Right. This is because I was, before that, I mean, the years that I was really delving deep into my spiritual body and my spiritual expression, I had this picture of me of being very much connected with the heart, very compassionate with life, being an expression of the one. Everything is an expression of the one. Like, we are all waves on the water. All of that is so beautiful, and it really resonates with me. And I always felt like, no matter when someone is crossing my border, I see that this person comes maybe has his own story, has his own anger, has his own backpack full of stones, right? So being like this compassionate monk that is saying like, okay, it's fine, I see you. Whereas now I felt also like coming into my body more and my masculine energy, I feel like, yes, but I'm also suppressing. I'm suppressing the emotions, right? I'm suppressing, like, having a concept. And this is somehow for me also kind of bypassing. Like, no, I'm this spiritual person. I'm this monk that is always smiling and happy. No, fuck no, right? To also be to like, and I love this what you said, like, being compassionate and seeing their story, but like fuck, I'm angry, but I still have compassion for you, right? I'm angry, and I'm expressing that anger, but I am also compassionate. Like, this is not excluding each other. It can be both in the same realm. It's the yin and the yang, right? It is always there. Like, we cannot exclude the one and say like, I'm just the other the analogy, or the not the analogy, the antagonist, right? It is always the yin and the yang. And the more we are accepting these energies in us both, the more whole we also experience life and ourselves. So, yes, feeling everyone around you, seeing it through a compassionate lens. We are all in this life together, having our own experience, having our own books. But I have also a beautiful instrument here that needs to be played. Yeah. And this instrument wants to play. And my expressions, this instrument, are emotions. So the freer I feel to really play this instrument fully, and not just a part of it, not just a reduced scale of it, but the whole range of it, the more this becomes a symphony in my life, the more it feels like an attunement. Yeah.
Yeah, music wouldn't be music if it was nothing but high notes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
and this is something that interesting. Like Alan Watts was talking about music in one of his lectures of how, you know, if it was all the same note constantly, it'd be annoying because you're just hearing the same thing over and over and over and over again. What makes music so beautiful is the variance of all of the notes, but even and there's one specific thing that he touched on that we've already kind of touched on in this conversation, that without space between the notes,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be music.
Exactly.
And so like space is something that until doing like somatic work, I didn't really understand the concept behind like what holding space truly meant, about what creating space within ourselves really meant. And that question actually came up recently during one of the training calls of what does it mean to create space within yourself? Like the person just couldn't wrap their brain around like, why are you asking me to create space within my body? What does that even mean? And it's like, well, if you're always so full of thoughts and feelings and sensations and stimulus, there's no space. And if there's no space, how can you actually perceive where you are? How can you actually differentiate between your thoughts, feelings, sensations versus you yourself?
Yeah, exactly. You become identified with the sensation, with the emotion, due to lack of space. And yeah, I mean, we always circle back to the point of, I mean, and we both are practicing inner stillness and being very much for a longer time period now in meditation, to explore the space, right? So it all starts with awareness. It starts with decoupling yourself from this perception of your mind, and seeing that the mind is just one part in your space. The mind, the thoughts are observable. So you can observe your thoughts. And when you're observing your thoughts, how can you be your thought? Like, who is observing it, right? So it's the same thing with this inner voice of ours. To whom is this voice talking? Who's listening? So just, it is such a small shift of perception or awareness, and being aware of it. And there's no woo-woo or any kind of mystic in it. It's just shifting your attention towards what is actually listening, what is seeing. And just by being like melting with that, with this observer, it creates automatically space, because it automatically creates like a decoupling of this identification, and then you have space. And all of a sudden, everything is happening in that space, like emotions, sensations. The more you are, the more you are practicing that, because it becomes a practice. Somatic awareness, this is what we are teaching in our courses. Being aware of what is happening in your inner universe, in your body, sensations, emotions, thoughts. And so the more space I have, the less I be reactive. This is what you said, right? So the less I also identify myself with anger. So it's not, I am not the anger. Anger is an expression, an energy in my body that is expressing. So when I'm not identified with the anger, then it's also not that I fall into the victimhood or that I fall into shame or like, oh, I did this. I said that. I'm such a bad person. I'm such an angry person. No, you are not your emotions, right? So this is very, very important. This is where, and again, I really try to more and more separate it from any kind of spiritual, mystic way of seeing the world or living in it. It is our true nature. This is what it means to be human. Being aware of being aware is being human. This is what separates us from all the other organisms on this planet. We're the only, at least that we know, that is aware of itself, being aware. Yeah? So the more we are not putting any concepts onto it, the more we embrace it as a part of our humanity, I think the more we can also learn to play this instrument as it wants to be played.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We went deep. Beautiful.
I think that is going to be par for the course for this podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
It's just touching on the depths of who we are as individuals, who we are as humans, and how can we continue to foster a relationship with ourselves, with our emotions, with the ways in which we show up in the world, while at the same time creating enough space that we can be that witness to recognize when something's coming up and be able to pull ourselves out of it before it gets too far outside of our ability to choose how we're going to respond.
Exactly. Absolutely. And you know what I thought about right now? A thought just came in. I think maybe it would be also nice to do in one of our episodes, like a somatic awareness practice, like to really help also, or let's to embody what we are talking, like for all the listeners and watching us to really feel what we are talking about. You know, that I really don't like just being in this mental projection, but really trying also to use the body. Maybe we can also incorporate that in our podcast so that we can also be a little bit more embodied and practical.
Well, let's start off the next episode with the somatic awareness practice and see where it takes us.
Yes. Amazing. Brother, thank you so much again for this deep dive. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much as well. It's so nice to be able to have these deeper conversations and talk about these topics that are sensitive, you know, are a little touchy. And I think it's important the more and more that we can all have these conversations, that we can all actually recognize that every single one of us has stories. Every single one of us has things that we're carrying. Every single one of us suffers in some way, shape, or form. But in learning to master yourself, or as, you know, Andre de Quim says on his podcast, to know thyself,
yes,
is to be able to recognize when you are no longer being yourself. And that's this idea of like attaching to stories, attaching to emotions, attaching to sensations and thinking they are us, when how can they be us when we can observe what's happening?
Exactly. Yeah. Life is such a miracle. Life is such a miracle. And the more we also see it as a miracle, I think the better world it would be for all of us. Absolutely. Thank you everyone for listening today, and looking forward to jump back in next week again.
Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Much love.